Good evening, friends. Welcome. It's a beautiful place, and I think we are making a new beginning after the inauguration which Dhyanaji did recently for this place. So, we'll begin with the reading for this week, which is the week 30th, and the title is "Do You Need a Guru?" Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Many people scoff at the idea of having a guru. True to human nature generally, they make a virtue of their scoffing. I am responsible for what I do, they announce. Responsible for my mistakes as well as for my victories. What would I ever learn if I handed over my development to someone else? To depend on another for guidance would be an act of spiritual cowardice. Swami later writes, it would be understandable for someone gifted with some trivial ability, for instance with words, to insist on doing his crossword puzzle himself without letting anyone else help him. But supposing even in such trivial matters he had no such gift, what virtue would there be in refusing to learn? For that matter, moreover, where do our gifts come from? They are not a native ability. Still, crossword puzzles are hardly an important challenge. What if a person wanted to do something daring? To climb a cliff, for instance, but refused to study the art of mountain climbing? He would climb at the risk of his life. And how much more is risked than physical life in the great adventure of the divine search, where the risk is to salvation itself? Where is the sacrifice in seeking guidance? Even a mountain guide would not presume to do one's climbing for one. His purpose would be only to help the neophyte to climb safely. To have a wise guru is not a sign of weakness, but of plain common sense. All the saints, aware as they are of the hazards of the adventure, agree on the importance of having a guide or guru. And these are the heroes speaking, not cowards or spiritual weaklings. Jesus emphasized the importance of having a teacher by asking John to baptize him. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 3, we read of his coming to John. Thus Jesus said to John, it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, Sri Krishna says, open thyself to those who have attained wisdom. They will be thy teachers. Ask questions of them both verbally and mentally. Serve them faithfully and with devotion. How is the devotee to recognize one who has attained wisdom? The Bhagavad Gita gives us this inspiring description of the sage. By this sign is he known, being of equal grace to comrades, friends, chance comers, strangers, lovers, enemies, aliens and kinsmen, loving all alike, evil or good. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om. So the title, friends, is Do We Need a Guru? And I don't think anybody sitting here in this room has a doubt on that matter. But nevertheless, the topic is for us to dive little deeper into the subject, and we will be seeing if we need, why do we need? And for that matter, if we need, then how to identify a true guru? Or let us say, if he helps us, how does he help us? And what is the right way to relate to a guru? So in that regard, just imagine, what would life be if, let us say, when we start our journey, maybe somebody was around us to teach us how to take those first steps in life. And maybe the first letter we wrote, whatever it was. And just imagine, even if we were riding a bicycle, there was somebody. Just imagine that if, let us say, there is a book available, how to ride a bicycle, and we just read it, would it be possible to still even write it? We do need somebody to guide us at that moment, or maybe do some hand holding, or give us some support. And it would not have been possible even if you have, let us say, the technical know-how or the books available on the subject. So I would like all of us to just for this at this moment, just give your heart's gratitude to all those people. Take this opportunity. Maybe you don't remember their faces, but just offer your heart's devotion, your love, your gratitude, share the divine energy with all those people. Maybe those who were helpful in guiding us to take the first few steps, helping us to write the first letter, or maybe the bicycle, or anything for that matter. Because at every step we needed some help, otherwise it would not have been possible. So just take a moment to offer your heart's gratitude to them. And now, if you see the subject which is on the spiritual matter, as Swami said, it could be, let us say, somebody just decides that I can climb the mountain, but then will he be able to do so without a guide available to him? And even if he says that, okay, I don't need, and if he does it, he's risking his life in that regard. But of course, he's risking his life in that lifetime. But when it comes to the spiritual matters in divine life, when we are talking of our, let us say, spiritual moksha or spiritual liberation, we are risking how many lifetimes we don't know. Because if we say, okay, I can do by myself and I don't need any help, then probably we are risking there too much. And what Swami writes here is actually very simple and very also humorous at the same time. He says that to have a wise guru is not a sign of weakness, but of plain common sense. So at some stage, I think we have to understand that you just cannot do it without the help. But then, if I take my own example in the matter of the divine learning or the divine quest, you may say, there were so many questions right in the beginning. I used to think, whether does God really exist? Or people go to temples and I don't know whether God is really a reality. And if it is a reality, then can we see God, or can we relate to Him? Can we still do our work, whatever God has given us, and still pursue our journey? So all these questions, probably nobody was able to answer to the perfection. And it was only when I read some of the teachings of Yogananda that it became crystal clear. So it was like, your guru gives you all those teachings. That gift of teachings comes from him. India is a land of scriptures, and some of these scriptures that we study, whether it is Bhagavad Gita or Ramayana, they are thousands of years old, and yes, they bring us clarity, but still we need a clarity in the present times, which only a guru can provide us. And so in that regard, Yogananda's teachings were helpful. But more than that, more than the gift of teachings, what a guru does is he gives us his gift of consciousness, which no ordinary teacher can provide us. Because if you see, they say that a blind cannot lead a blind, but a person who has attained moksha, who has already attained liberation, and if I am seeking liberation, then only he can provide us, one who has already gone there. It is basically the same story if you think of Vivekananda, who was in search of his own guru. The only question he was asking whenever he used to meet anybody who claimed to be a guru was that, have you seen God? That was a simple question. And nobody could say yes. It was only Ramakrishna Paramhansa who said, yes, I have seen God. And not only I have seen, but I can help you to see Him too. And only then he accepted him as his guru. So the next thing would be, how to identify. And the same question actually, if you see, Arjuna also asks in Bhagavad Gita that, okay, if I have to identify a guru, how can I do that? And what Krishna says here is, Arjuna says first, O Keshava, what are the signs of one who has attained calm wisdom and is established in union with God? Later Krishna says, he asks again, he says, how does he speak, sit and walk? Because he wanted to have some signs, to identify. And then Krishna says, one who has put away all desires, being wholly contented in the self, may be considered settled in the wisdom. His very movements and gestures, in other words, reveal the inwardness of his state of consciousness. His voice vibrates with calm wisdom. His posture is calm, not restless, and demonstrates perfect contentment. His walk is relaxed and serene. So you see, initially Krishna, because Arjuna was asking about the physical things, that's just like, because when we are on the physical plane, we want to identify with some physical features. So he says he's giving them all these physical clues. He will be sitting and walking straight. He will be calm. He will not be restless. His voice will have some magnetism. But then he changes gears and comes to the real substance of it. He says he whose consciousness is unshaken by affliction and is not excited by good fortune, who no longer hungers for earthly affection and is without fear and anger. Such a man qualifies to be considered a Muni of steady discrimination. He who under all circumstances is without attachment and is neither related by goodness nor depressed by evil is a man of established wisdom. Which is to say that it can be really tricky to identify who is a guru. And so yes, Krishna explains that yes, there are some outward signs, talks about calmness, posture, stillness, also gives a clue about the inherent consciousness of non-attachment, of equanimity under all circumstances. But here again, there is one thing which one can use to understand this point. That point is, how do you feel in his presence? Some of us had this opportunity to be around Swami Kriyananda, and I think many of us will agree with this fact that when we were around him, there was a kind of unconditional joy that one used to feel, a kind of peace, a natural calmness, a sense of fulfillment, which was suddenly not there, but when you were around him, it was there. Maybe it happened with me that I came with few questions to ask him. Maybe I had asked only one question or two, and later on you suddenly started feeling there is no need for asking too many questions, because you feel that fulfillment in your heart where questions do not matter. So you see, that is one way to understand how do you feel in that presence, because a guru's consciousness, or guru is not just a physical body. Guru is a consciousness which has no boundaries, and when that consciousness flows, it necessarily will affect everything, whether it is inanimate matter, and if it is a human heart, how can it remain unaffected? Because the moment you come in that magnetic field, you feel that beauty, and you feel that joy, and you feel that upliftment, which was otherwise you were not feeling. So I think that could also be one way to identify whether we are in the presence, whether we are really in that divine presence or not. Now, it is another, if you see, this is very important when we take this subject of how should we relate to a guru, because when a guru, let us say, is in the physical body, we may have this kind of confusion, which actually Swami Kriyananda also had, and he was mentally battling with this idea. And we know this story when Swami Kriyananda, he was with Yogananda, and Yogananda was talking to some of his disciples, and Yogananda, he was watching Yogananda from a distance, and he felt, oh, Yogananda is in the body, but at the same time he is a guru who is omnipresent. So then he just had this kind of confusion going on in his mind, and Yogananda could actually read his thoughts. And after some time, he just came to Swamiji and just gave him an apple and then went away. And so the thing here was that Swami later on said that, this kind of battle which I was going through in my mind was and he wanted to tell me that, yes, my consciousness is everywhere, But don't forget that I am also in a physical form right now. Because if you see, a guru is not only formless, but he can take any form. And it is basically for us only that he has to come and take a form. Otherwise, his power and his consciousness is everywhere. He doesn't even need to remain restricted to that form itself. And that is why there's another story, in fact, which I would like to share here, because this man who wanted to be disciple of this guru, who was a guru in America, I think, who, or maybe probably in India, he went to this man and he said, "Sir, I want to be a disciple." But this man just looked at him and he said, "But my dear friend, I can very clearly see that your guru is Yogananda." But that man said, "Sir, but Yogananda is dead. He's no more." But then this man said, "My dear friend, Yogananda is not dead. He's alive. It is you who is dead." And then ultimately he had to understand that power of guru, or the power of any, for that matter, realized master, doesn't remain restricted to just one form which he had to take for a particular purpose, for a particular mission, but rather it continues from lifetime after lifetime, and he will guide the work and he will continue to bless the coming disciples through his disciples, and that light will continue to flow through the disciples who will come later on when he is not in the physical body. And this is very important, because if you see, each one of us being a disciple of this great master, our job is actually to be a channel and to continue to allow to flow that light and consciousness through our hearts. And this is very important. If you see, when we restrict a guru to just an idol or just a picture, what are we doing? We are actually creating a distance. Because if you see, when you see a guru as a form and you see yourself as a form too, how can two forms unite? They will always be at a distance. The two bodies can never unite. So it is very important to understand, for us to understand that guru is very subtle, and what can be the subtlest through which we can allow guru's power to unite with us. And without that, no change is going to happen. So that, in that regard, if you see guru's formless presence, if we feel, and we will practice this in a short meditation, that if we try to first understand my true nature, this we practiced in our previous satsang also, that my true nature is not the body, not the thoughts, but the real I, which doesn't need the body, which doesn't need the thoughts, is actually formless. And because I am formless but aware, from where is this awareness coming from? And then you understand that this awareness is always available, it is eternal, and that is the real guru, who is always supporting you from behind, who is always guiding us from behind. And in that regard, actually, we feel that oneness. Only in the formless reality of the guru, we will feel that oneness, and that will bring the change in us. Because if you see, what is the basic purpose? Why do we come to spiritual path, or why do we struggle, or why do we feel that, okay, I have to make some kind of progress? Because, and that progress is to, let us say, the goal is to have moksha, the goal is to have liberation. But what is it that is binding us? What is the bondage? The bondage could be of our attachments, of our desires. And those attachments and desires, as seed tendencies, we are carrying from lifetimes after lifetimes. And those seed tendencies, how are they going to burn? And unless those seed tendencies are going to be burned down forever, we will be compelled to come again and again and have a body after another, incarnation after incarnation. So if you see, the basic idea of bringing that guru's light and guru's presence into ourselves, and to feel that oneness is the only key by which we can allow that light to baptize us, and that fire to roast those seed tendencies, which could be of any nature. Maybe those seed tendencies are of attachment to our loved ones, or attachment to wealth, or attachment to the opposite gender, or anything, XYZ. And that is how those seed tendencies will be taken care of. So we will now do a short practice where, and we'll practice an affirmation also, and then we will conclude. And in this practice, first of all, just take a minute to see that, okay, what is that wrong tendency or those seed tendency which I want to burn down forever. Just take a moment and we will be doing this practice. So close your eyes and take a moment to just think about any seed tendency which you feel is probably a bondage, which you are struggling to remove from your consciousness, or you feel is probably one of the reasons why you feel that you have to come again and again on the plane, on this physical plane. Just think about it. Now, as we have kept our eyes closed, when we are not seeing any forms around us, feel that my true nature is formless. I don't need any form to exist. Remind yourself that when I was in deep sleep, I was having no form, but I was still existing. And same is true now. If thoughts are coming, remind yourself that when I was in deep sleep, there were no thoughts. And I don't need any thought for my existence. Just hold on to this feeling of I without any form, without any external thought. Thoughts anyway do not belong to us, which Yogananda said. And holding this I, which is nothing but pure awareness, just ponder over this feeling of awareness. Where is it coming from? This eternal awareness is already there. And this sense of I is just a small aspect of it. As Yogananda said, a little bubble on the ocean of awareness. And in this formless awareness, suddenly you feel that oneness with that underlying reality. With that stillness and oneness, just mentally think of this affirmation, and you can mentally say it as I repeat the words. I and my Father are one. I command thy power to cauterize the seeds of wrong tendencies in my mind. Burn that seed of whatever wrong tendency you have thought of in thy fire. and baptize me in thy light. I and my Father are one. I command thy power to cauterize the seed tendencies of wrong habits. Burn the seed with thy fire and baptize me in thy light. Just mentally, you can repeat this affirmation in your own words as you have got the essence, and feel yourself cleansed in that light, the seed tendencies getting roasted in thy fire. Let's practice it for about 1 minute. Om. I would like to conclude now with an excerpt from Autobiography of a Yogi, where Yogananda is reminding us that the bond with the Guru is eternal. And we may feel that, okay, I have come to know about my Guru in this lifetime, but Guru is following us, who knows from how many lifetimes. As here he says, the eternal bond of Guru and disciple that existed between John and Jesus was present also for Babaji and Lahadi Mahashaya. With tender solicitude, the deathless Guru swam the Lethean waters that swirled between the last two lives of his chela and guided the successive steps taken by the child and then by the man, Lahadi Mahashaya. It was not until the disciple had reached his 33rd year that Babaji deemed the time to be ripe to openly re-establish the never-severed link. Then, after their brief meeting near Ranikhet, the selfless master banished his dearly beloved disciple from the little mountain group, releasing him for an outward world mission. My son, I shall come whenever you need me. What mortal lover can bestow that infinite promise? Just think about those words, my son, I shall come whenever you need me, because that's an eternal promise of a Guru for each one of us. Because we may think, as I think in my life, that I read Autobiography of a Yogi at the age of 30, and later on I came into the teachings and got the discipleship and Kriya initiation. Maybe some of you also got the discipleship in the recent times, and that apparently gives us a feeling that, okay, I came into my contact, or I found my Guru in recent times. But that's not true. It's rather Guru who has found you, because Guru was following us for so many lifetimes, because that's an eternal bond. He never breaks his promise. Whenever he gives us, he must have given that promise, who knows how many lifetimes back, that I will look after you and guide you till the time you reach your goal. So with those words, our job is now to just stay sincere and feel and devotedly offer our heart's devotion to our Guru. Feel that connection. It's like re-establishing the bond. It's not that the bond was severed, but it has to be re-established in each lifetime. And when we do that, and when we lovingly offer our heart's love to Him, we strengthen it, and we allow that Guru's light to baptize us, and slowly we will see all our negative tendencies will just get roasted, as Master said, in that divine fire. And then the ultimate purity, as we say, the gold gains purity. Gold was always a gold, but the dross had to be burned down, which we can only burn in that divine fire. Thank you.